this week we are going to be talking about mobility and mobility training and exercises. There's a couple of key points that I'm going to talk about through here that I'm going to go over. I have it on my lovely whiteboard right here for you to understand the difference between flexibility and mobility. Where flexibility is considered a passive exercise. So if we work on flexibility, we are reaching down and grabbing our feet and holding to stretch out our hamstrings. We grab our foot and we pull our leg up to our butt so we can stretch our quads. We do this to increase the range of motion of our arms. Where when we're doing mobility, we are actually doing active movement in order to try to get that done. So when we are in class together, we are working on those high knees, trying to drive your knees up as high as possible. On those butt kicks, you're really trying to snap your heel to your butt as fast as possible. So we're stretching at the same time as we're using strength, and we're also using stability. So if you look at the definition right here, it says mobility is flexibility. Okay, it helps to be flexible if you're going to work on your mobile exercises, which we'll find out today. But then we also need you to be strong through that entire movement and also have some stability. So as I go through the lesson here, I really want you to be thinking about how you can execute these exercises and what exactly you are going to need to work on as you do these exercises on your own today. All right, so we are going to talk quickly about what mobility is. So mobility is the ability to move a muscle and joint through a full range of motion, okay? Now, when you're doing that, you are physically moving it yourself. You're not having, like, your muscles are actually doing the work. I'm not grabbing my foot to try to stretch my hamstrings, okay? I'm not taking my hand against my arm to pull it across. We're trying to actually get it there on our own, reach up above your head so my bicep is behind my ear rather than someone pushing it back or something pushing it back for me. So again, like I said, mobility is flexibility plus strength plus stability, because you're doing all those things on your own. Why is mobility so important? Really, it's to make sure that you don't hurt yourself, and that also it does help improve your athletic ability. And especially as you probably found out this week or last week when we did our hip hinge and our squatting, it helps you actually get into those positions we need you in to be successful. So again, it decreases injury because improving your muscle's ability to move further in a movement decreases the chance of a pulled muscle or a sprained joint. When we're talking about athletic ability, and again, it just improves your body's chance of getting into those key positions. I'm trying to do a hip hinge, but I need my back to be able to stay neutral. And again, we need those movements to be able to play sports or to work out with more strength. We are stronger when we are more mobile. Now, the one thing that a lot of people get confused with is they think that flexibility is the same as mobility. You could be as flexible as could be. You might even be able to like throw your leg up behind your head because you are so flexible. But what we have to understand is that doesn't necessarily make us mobile. It doesn't mean that you are strong when you try to kick your leg up there. So when again we are looking at this, if you look at the gentleman up here, he is holding his leg in place. He is working on flexibility because he needs his hands to physically keep him there. So the definition here says when someone is flexible, their muscles are held pain-free through an unrestricted range of motion. So he gets his knee up to his chest, that's where he's going to stay. This is done with the support of body, weight, hands, or props. So like if you're using a stretching strap or if we're using a bench to help us hold that range of motion. Now, when we're talking about mobility, as you see her, she's doing the same movement, but she is pulling that knee up on her own. Okay, her hip flexor and her quads are doing that work. And here her glute and her hamstring are making sure she's popping up so those hips come through. So when someone is mobile, their muscles are moved pain-free through an unrestricted range of motion. And this is done when someone moves their own body to see how far a joint can move. So again, like I said, to have mobility, you must have flexibility, strength, and stability. So here's one of the first exercises you're going to be doing. It's just a deep squat. Okay, so not saying just a deep squat, but it is. You're working on dropping your hips as low as possible. However, you need to keep a neutral spine. We talked about neutral spine last week, and it's really making sure that our back is staying straight as possible. Our elbows are pressed against the inside of our knees to try to push our knees out to get more of a stretch on our adductors. And my husband is making something in the oven, so I'm going to go get that out for him because he's outside. Hold on. All right, looks amazing. Nachos in the oven. Very good. All right, so when we're talking about that deep squat, again, we are dropping our hips as low as possible. I want your toes to stay straight. Some of you, we really talked about not letting your heels squeak in and your toes squirt out as you're doing that squat. Maintaining that neutral spine, and again, pressing the elbows inside of our knees. That is our deep squat. The next one is called runner's lunge, which we have done in class numerous times, and we're doing it with a T-spine or thoracic spine rotation. Your thoracic spine is right in the middle of your back. So again, you start in a plank, and then you bring your foot up all the way outside of your hand. Now that is your first test of mobility. If you cannot get your foot all the way outside of your hand, where I have it right here, so as I step my right foot forward, it's placed right next to my hand, that is your first point of not being very mobile. We want you to be able to get your foot from here all the way to outside of your hand. Then you're going to rotate. And as you rotate, you want your shoulders to be straight up and down as possible. Now, again, if your mobility is limited, you're not going to be able to reach your hand all the way up towards to the ceiling or to the sky, depending on where you're doing the exercise. So again, we want you to try to rotate as far as possible. Go back to plank and then do your other leg. Reverse tabletop with extension. So again, you're going to start in a crab walk position, and then you're going to lift your arm up and over and let your thoracic spine rotate again. So again, hips go up and then extend that arm and reach the opposite side of your body. You're going to feel this stretch through your lats. Okay, and you're also going to get a nice stretch in your hip flexor here as you press those hips up. Those hip flexors are going to stretch as well. This one is called a plank to pike. So I'm starting in that high plank position, and what I'm doing is I'm pressing my hips up and I'm dropping my head down between my biceps. Now, if you notice, you can see my ear when I'm recording this from the side all the way on the other side of my biceps. That's our goal. Some of you are going to be very tight through the shoulders and through your lats, so you're going to have a harder time with this one. If you need to, you may bend your knees on your pike position. Okay, my hamstrings are a bit flexible, so I'm able to do this with straight legs. That is not the expectation, but you do want to be able to drop your ears all the way on the other side of your biceps. Next one is another deep squat. So if you struggled with the first deep squat, this one is about a level 5 out of 5 on mobility exercises. You can do this with a weight, or you do not need to use weight at all if you just want to do an empty hand, but you are trying to keep that neutral spine. Notice my hips are not tucked underneath me, and I'm going to press my arm straight up to the ceiling, making sure it is crossing behind my ear. All right, so again, neutral spine, bicep behind your ear are your goals. So this one is a forward fold. Now, forward fold is different than just stretching your hamstrings. My back is staying neutral that entire time. Now, in this GIF, I'm showing two different levels. So if you have good flexibility, you can put your hands flat on the floor. If you need a little bit more help, you can put your hands on your shins. And if that is still too hard, I want you to put your hands just on your thighs. So you're squatting your hips slightly down, and then you're going to just straighten your legs, and you're going to repeat that movement over and over and over again. As you start your first time, it might not feel so good, okay, and might not be able to straighten your legs right away, but as you get warm, you'll be able to stretch your hamstrings further and further. This one, again, we have done something similar to this in class, and I've had you keep both feet flat on the ground. Now what we're going to be doing is that we're going to be flipping that straight leg toe up to the ceiling. So again, this is alternating Cossack squat. You're going to keep your feet spread slightly wider than your shoulders. Your toes are going to start pointing straight ahead. When I drop my hips to the right, my left toe flips up to the ceiling. Okay, and as I drop my hips to my left, my right toe is going to flip up to the ceiling. You're going to feel this one again in your adductors, okay, and in your groin area. So what you're going to do is you're going to take 15-second videos of you completing each of the exercises shown. Okay, then you're going to watch and figure out which one is your best one and which one is your worst one. Okay, so watch each of your videos and assess what your strengths and challenges were for each. And then you're going to choose your best one and your worst one. The one that you felt awesome doing, the one that you're like, oh my gosh, absolutely not. Or maybe it was just your worst one out of the 7. And what you're going to do is you're going to turn in, there's 3 different assignments that are going to be in Schoology. Your worst mobility exercise video, your best mobility exercise video, and then there's an exit ticket reflection that you're going to answer which one was your best, which one was your worst, and you're going to give me a quick assessment of what made it great or what made it not so great. So all that being said, you can be as flexible as possible, but if we are not strong, if we don't have that strength, Okay, we're gonna have a really hard time doing some of these mobility exercises, and then also working on that stability. So those of you who you've done a million crunches, but then at the same time you can't hold a plank without your belly sagging to the ground, okay, we might have a little bit more challenging time. However, we want to decrease injury, and we want to make sure that we are moving in the most efficient way possible. So we want to move right when we're moving weights, and we want to move right when we are exercising or doing our sport. All right, that's it. 10 minutes. I'm done.